All right, so get ready, because today we are really going deep into Bitcoin.
Oh, yeah.
Specifically, this very controversial claim that it was, well, hijacked.
Mm.
And we're going to be using Hijacking Bitcoin, the hidden history of BTC, as our primary source,
Yeah.
co-written by Roger Verse,
Okay.
who is a very outspoken early Bitcoin champion.
Yeah.
So the big question here is, was Bitcoin intentionally steered away from what it was supposed to be?
Mm.
And if so, should we care? Should you be concerned?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Let's find out.
Let's find out. So
It's interesting because...
what's so fascinating is
Yeah.
we're not just looking at like a history book.
Right.
We're looking at it from the perspective of someone who was actually there.
Exactly. Someone who is in the thick of it.
In the trenches
Yeah.
of the early Bitcoin community.
Absolutely.
So Ver's perspective is going to offer a very unique look at how this revolutionary technology evolved
Yeah.
and where he thinks it went wrong.
Mhm.
And I think it's important to remember that while his perspective is valuable, it might be
Totally.
a little biased.
Of course.
But it gives us a really interesting window into those early days.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's rewind all the way back to the very beginning of Bitcoin.
Back to the genesis.
This was like a radical idea.
It really was.
It was peer-to-peer electronic cash,
Right.
cutting out the middleman,
Thanks.
accessible to everyone, low fees, fast transactions.
Yeah.
Was this digital utopia too good to be true?
I mean,
Yeah.
you have to think about the context.
Right.
This was 2008.
Yeah.
The world was still reeling from the financial crisis.
Oh, yeah.
Trust in institutions was completely shattered.
Absolutely.
And Bitcoin comes along with its promise of decentralization and individual empowerment.
Right.
It felt like this breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
Satoshi Nakamoto's vision was so clear.
Yeah.
A system that was built on cryptography,
Right.
not trust. One that put financial control back into the hands of the people.
I remember those early days, man.
Oh, yeah.
I was an early adopter.
Whoa.
I was so caught up in the excitement.
Yeah.
I was mining Bitcoin on my old desktop computer.
Wow.
My company was one of the first to accept Bitcoin as payment.
That's amazing.
We were selling rare books online back then.
Okay.
And the feeling of being part of something revolutionary was palpable.
You could just feel it in the air.
Oh, yeah, you could feel it.
Yeah.
But as with any revolution, cracks started to appear.
Right.
And that's where I think we get into this whole block size debate.
Exactly. This is where things start to get interesting.
Yeah.
So this debate,
Yeah.
it was seemingly just a technical debate
Right.
about how many transactions you could fit into each block on the blockchain.
Right.
But it became this symbolic battleground
Yeah.
for the soul of Bitcoin.
Interesting.
On one side, you had the big blockers,
Right.
like Satoshi and Roger Ver,
Right.
arguing for larger blocks to accommodate growth.
Mm-hmm.
Keep those transaction fees low,
Yep.
staying true to that original vision of Bitcoin as a daily use currency.
And then on the other side, you had the small blockers,
Right.
who really prioritize security and decentralization. They were arguing that if you made the blocks bigger,
Yeah.
that would increase the cost of running a full node, which could potentially centralize the network.
In the hands of a few.
Yeah, in the hands of people with more resources.
Exactly.
So it wasn't just about
Yeah.
technical specification.
It was about ideologies.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important to understand that
Yeah.
both sides truly believed that they were fighting for what was best for Bitcoin.
Right.
The small blockers. They were really afraid that increasing the block size would compromise the very essence of decentralization,
Yeah.
make Bitcoin vulnerable to attacks
Oh, yeah.
and corporate control.
They saw themselves as guardians of Satoshi's vision,
Exactly.
even if it meant sacrificing short-term scalability.
Exactly.
But Ver argues that this is where the seeds of this so-called hijacking were sown.
Right.
He believes the small blockers, and specifically the group known as Bitcoin Core, who were responsible for Bitcoin's development,
Right.
intentionally stifled Bitcoin's growth to maintain control. How much truth is there to that?
Well, it's a really complex issue.
It is.
And it's really contentious.
Yeah.
But to understand where Ver's coming from,
Yeah.
we have to look at the rise of Bitcoin Core
Okay.
and the influence of a company called Blockstream.
Okay.
So initially, Bitcoin Core, led by Gavin Andresen, Satoshi's chosen successor,
Right.
they seemed to be aligned with the big block philosophy.
Okay.
But then there was this gradual shift. And Ver points to Blockstream as a key driver of this change.
Okay, so Blockstream is a company
Yeah.
founded by several prominent Bitcoin core developers
Right.
who advocated for keeping the block size small. Ver's book highlights this specific investment that Blockstream received
Right.
from AXA Strategic Ventures, which is a subsidiary of a multinational financial giant.
Oh, wow.
And he sees this as evidence of a conflict of interest,
Interesting.
suggesting that financial incentives may have influenced the direction of Bitcoin's development.
I see.
That's a big accusation.
It is a big accusation.
Yes.
And it's important to note that these claims are very contested.
Of course.
While Ver's book does present some compelling evidence, we do have to consider other perspectives and potential biases.
Of course.
Some people argue that Blockstream's involvement was just them being committed to the small block philosophy,
Right.
and that their focus on security and decentralization was actually in the best interest of Bitcoin.
Right.
So it's not as simple as black and white.
There are definitely two sides to this story.
Exactly.
So we have this clash of perspectives, this battle for the narrative of Bitcoin, and it wasn't just a war of words.
Right.
Verts goes on to describe some very aggressive tactics used to suppress dissent and maintain that small block narrative.
Interesting.
We're talking censorship.
Really?
Propaganda.
Wow.
Even allegations of coordinated attacks against anyone who dared to challenge the status quo.
That's intense.
So is this all true?
Yeah.
Or is Verse exaggerating to support his narrative?
I mean, it's hard to say for sure.
Yeah.
But his book provides some pretty compelling examples of censorship on major Bitcoin forums like Bitcoin Talk and Our Bitcoin.
Right.
Where alternative solutions were actively suppressed.
Okay.
Like you couldn't even talk about them.
Wow.
He specifically mentions the banning of Coinbase from Bitcoin.org for supporting a block size increase.
Wow.
And that was seen by many as a real power play by the small blockers.
Yeah.
Like they were trying to control the narrative.
Wow.
And then there's the 1 MB forever video.
Right.
Which Verse argues was just propaganda designed to scare people away from larger blocks.
So it sounds like a full-blown information war.
Yeah, it kind of was.
Wow.
Both sides were using whatever they could.
To get their message out.
Yeah, to sway public opinion.
So what was it like to be in the middle of all this?
It was a crazy time.
Yeah.
Lots of passionate debates. Accusations flying around.
Wow.
A growing sense of division within the Bitcoin community.
Yeah.
Some people saw the small blockers as these benevolent protectors of Bitcoin's core principles.
Right.
But others saw them as power-hungry censors.
Right.
Suppressing innovation and stifling Bitcoin's growth.
Wow. So were there any attempts to find a middle ground?
Yes.
Some kind of compromise?
There were a few.
To bridge this gap?
Yeah, they tried to find some common ground.
Right.
Yeah. There were each one kind of offered like a glimmer of hope.
Right.
But they all ultimately ended in disappointment.
Oh, wow.
So alternative implementations like Bitcoin XT, Bitcoin Classic, and Bitcoin Unlimited emerge. Each of them aiming to increase that block size and address these concerns about scalability.
So these were like different paths Bitcoin could have taken.
Yeah, like forks in the road.
Right, right.
Different ways it could have gone.
It must have felt like
it was like
Wild West.
Yeah, the Wild West of software.
Trying to like
everyone wants
control the future of Bitcoin.
Control the future, yeah.
Did any of these alternative implementations gain any traction?
They did initially.
Yeah.
It really sparked a lot of debate.
Yeah.
Rallied a lot of different factions within the community.
Okay.
But according to Ver,
these
efforts were systematically undermined.
Wow.
They faced coordinated DDoS attacks.
Whoa.
Accusations of being corporate takeovers in disguise.
Wait, DDoS attacks?
Yeah.
That's serious.
It's serious stuff.
It sounds like things were getting really heated.
It was getting intense.
What about the Hong Kong agreement? I've read a bit about that.
Yeah.
Wasn't that supposed to be like a big...
Yeah, it was supposed to be
compromise.
The Grand Compromise.
Okay.
It was brokered in early 2016.
Okay.
Brought together like all these different Bitcoin stakeholders.
Okay.
Miners, developers, businesses.
Right.
Everyone.
Everyone got together.
Trying to find some common ground.
Okay.
They agreed on a roadmap.
Right.
That included activating SegWit.
Right.
Which was this scaling solution.
Yeah.
Designed to improve efficiency.
Okay.
Followed by a 2x increase to the block size.
So they were finally going to bury the hatchet.
It seemed like it.
And just move forward.
Yeah.
What went wrong?
Well, the distrust was still there.
Yeah.
Verzer argues that the small blockers, especially those within Bitcoin Core, never really intended to honor the agreement.
Wow.
He points to their actions later on, especially their support for the UASF, as evidence of bad faith.
The UASF, that's the user-activated soft fork.
Right.
That was a pretty controversial move.
Yeah, it was very controversial.
It was essentially trying to force the activation of SegWit without getting full consensus from the miners, who are the ones responsible for securing the network.
Exactly.
So that was a bold move.
A gamble.
Some might even say reckless.
Yeah, for sure.
Which just further fractured the community.
Yeah, it did.
Did it achieve its goal?
Ultimately, no.
Okay.
But it really highlighted those deep divisions.
Yeah.
And that growing frustration with Bitcoin Core's control over Bitcoin's development.
And it was during this time that Bitcoin Cash was born.
Exactly.
Bitcoin Cash.
The rebel child.
The rebel child of the crypto world.
Yeah.
So this was a hard fork of Bitcoin, meaning it split off from the original blockchain.
Split off, yeah.
Created a new cryptocurrency.
Brand new.
With its own set of rules.
Totally separate.
Okay, so tell us a bit more about its origins.
Okay.
And its goals.
It emerged in August 2017.
Okay.
Championing that big block philosophy.
Right.
Aiming to restore what they saw as the true vision of Bitcoin. A peer-to-peer electronic cash system.
Okay.
They implemented an 8 millib block size limit.
Wow.
Significantly larger
than Bitcoin's
1 millib limit at the time.
Right.
Promising lower fees, faster transactions.
This was a bold move.
It was.
A direct challenge to the established order.
Absolutely.
And it wasn't just symbolic, was it?
No.
Bitcoin Cash actually gained some traction.
Yeah, it did.
Price surged.
Yeah.
Attracted a dedicated community of supporters.
For sure.
So its early success suggested a real appetite for a Bitcoin that prioritized scalability and affordability.
Right.
It seemed to really resonate with those who felt alienated by the direction Bitcoin Core was taking, those who still believed in that original promise.
That original vision.
Of peer-to-peer electronic cash.
Right.
But even with that initial momentum, Bitcoin Cash faced some significant challenges.
For sure.
It was entering a market dominated by
the OG.
The OG Bitcoin.
Yeah.
The original.
And well known.
Yeah, the most well-known cryptocurrency. So how did it fare against that giant?
Well, it carved out a niche for itself, especially in regions where low fees and fast transaction times were really crucial. Like it gained a lot of popularity in places like Venezuela, where hyperinflation and economic instability made traditional financial systems unreliable.
So in some parts of the world, Bitcoin Cash was actually fulfilling that promise of being usable.
Everyday money.
Everyday money. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's pretty amazing.
It is.
But despite these successes, it never really managed to dethrone Bitcoin.
No, it didn't.
Why do you think that is?
Well, there are a few things at play.
Okay.
Bitcoin had that first mover advantage. The brand recognition, the network effect. It was the original. And for a lot of people, it remains synonymous with the entire concept of cryptocurrency.
Right. It's like the Kleenex of crypto. Everyone knows the name, even if they don't really understand the tech.
Exactly.
So did that alone hold Bitcoin Cash back?
It was definitely a factor.
Okay.
But not the only one. Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Even with those scaling challenges and those sometimes high fees, it had built a very strong vocal community, that digital gold narrative.
Right.
While it might be a little different from Satoshi's original vision, it resonated with a lot of investors who saw Bitcoin as a store of value, a hedge against inflation,
a safe haven.
A safe haven asset.
So Bitcoin Cash was focused on being that everyday money.
Yeah.
And Bitcoin was attracting a different type of user.
A different crowd.
The investor.
Yeah.
The speculator.
The digital gold bug.
The digital gold bug, right? So their target audiences were very different.
They were.
And as Bitcoin's price kept rising, attracting more investors,
more attention,
more media attention, it became harder and harder for Bitcoin Cash to compete.
It's that classic network effect.
Yeah.
The more people use a platform, the more valuable it becomes.
And in the crypto world, those network effects are
huge.
Huge.
Massive.
You need liquidity.
Yeah.
You need exchanges.
Developers.
Developers building applications and Bitcoin Bitcoin, for all its flaws,
Yeah.
still had the most developed ecosystem.
It did.
So what happened to those other implementations we talked about?
Oh.
Bitcoin XT,
Right.
Classic.
Unlimited.
Did they just kind of fade away?
They did eventually.
Okay.
I mean, they had an impact.
Yeah.
But they couldn't get enough traction
Okay.
to really change the course of Bitcoin's development.
It's amazing how this seemingly technical debate led to such a
Wild.
dramatic split, like a fundamental disagreement about
the nature
of Bitcoin.
It's the purpose of it.
Yeah, the very purpose of Bitcoin.
Yeah, what it was supposed to be.
But as you said, the story isn't over.
Oh, no.
Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash,
right.
They both continue to evolve.
They're changing.
Adapting to the crypto world.
It's a wild world.
It's a crazy world.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like we're watching two branches of the same family tree growing in different directions, each one trying to stay true to its roots while also adapting to
the environment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good analogy.
Yeah.
Because it highlights how dynamic the crypto space is.
For sure.
It's not static.
No.
Things are constantly evolving, new ideas, technologies, challenges.
Yeah, it's never boring.
Never boring.
So where do we stand now? All these years after the Bitcoin Cash hard fork?
Yeah.
Has either side won this ideological battle?
I don't think it's about winning or losing.
Okay.
It's more about understanding the different paths that were available.
Right.
And the implications of those choices.
Yeah.
Bitcoin, with its focus on being digital gold, a store of value, it's definitely achieved mainstream recognition and adoption that Bitcoin Cash hasn't.
Yeah.
But you have to ask.
At what cost?
At what cost? Yeah.
Bitcoin's high fees.
Yeah.
Slow transaction times.
Sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah.
Make it
not so practical for everyday use.
Exactly. Especially in certain parts of the world.
Right, where those factors can really affect people's lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is where I think the debate about the future of cryptocurrency gets really interesting.
It does.
Of
truly decentralized peer-to-peer.
Electronic cash.
Is it fading away?
Yeah.
Or is it just changing shape?
Right. So what does all this mean for our listeners?
Yeah.
You know, those who are just starting to explore crypto, those who have been following it for years.
Right.
What are the key takeaways from this deep dive into Bitcoin's
into its
tumultuous history?
I think the biggest takeaway is that this idea of a decentralized future, it's an ongoing process.
It's a journey.
It's a journey, not a destination.
Right.
There are going to be bumps along the way.
Of course.
Disagreements, compromises, hard forks.
Yeah.
But those core principles.
Yeah.
Decentralization, transparency.
Yeah.
Individual empowerment.
They're worth fighting for.
They are.
It sounds like you're saying we shouldn't be discouraged by the challenges, but see them as opportunities.
Exactly. To grow.
And grow, yeah.
Yeah. And I'd really encourage your listeners to be part of this conversation.
Yes.
Do your own research.
Yeah.
Challenge assumptions.
Don't just take things at face value.
No.
Yeah.
Form your own opinion.
About the future of crypto.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to ask tough questions.
Right.
Explore different perspectives. Think critically.
About the tech that's shaping our world.
Exactly.
Well said.
I think that's a great place to wrap up.
Yeah.
This has been a really thought-provoking journey.
It has.
Exploring the history of Bitcoin, the emergence of Bitcoin Cash.
Yeah, it's a fascinating story.
And I really hope our listeners have gained some valuable insights.
I hope so, too.
From this deep dive.
Me too.
It's been a pleasure having you.
It's been great being here.
Sharing this journey with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And I hope our listeners will continue to explore this fascinating world of cryptocurrency.
Absolutely.
With a critical eye and an open mind.
For sure.
Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.
Yeah.
Until next time, keep exploring.
Keep learning.
Keep learning.
Keep challenging the status quo.
And keep challenging the status quo.